Okay, welcome back everyone. Thanks so much for joining us again. I'm very excited to introduce our next presentation from the team at Bloomberg. So we have Alyssa, Erica and Madiha. They'll be giving an insight into what they do and how you can utilise your skills and start a career at Bloomberg. Please remember, we've got a Q&A box on the right. So if there are any questions that you want to ask, pop them in there because I will be jumping on at the end and asking those questions. So without further ado, over to you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. Hi there. My name is Alyssa Garland. Just a quick introduction to myself. I've been at Bloomberg for 3.5 years, and my role is Early Engagement Program Manager and Recruiter. So I program manage our internship here at Bloomberg, as well as help out with our Insight Week and some of our skills programs from the entry level, as well as recruiting for full-time roles across global data, which is where Madiha is from. But I will let her introduce herself right now. So Madiha, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Alyssa. So hi everyone, my name is Madiha Ahmed. I've been at Bloomberg for just coming up to 9 years, and I am currently a team leader within the fundamentals team in global data. I've been in global data this whole time in a variety of different roles, and I'm also very heavily involved in our diversity and inclusion efforts, which I'll talk about in a bit.
Awesome. And Erica is just getting logged on. We're having some of these technical issues that I'm sure we all know well through the pandemic. But just before we get her on and get started, I just wanted to give a quick introduction to Bloomberg and what we do and who we are, for those of you who maybe haven't known us before or have only known us by name. So basically, Bloomberg is a financial data company. We're the market leader in financial data, and our job is to provide data and insights to clients in the financial markets or anywhere really, anyone who wants to gain financial data and information in order to make informed investment decisions. So our company is really on the fore of providing accurate and timely data to clients alongside amazing customer support and service. And you know, the core cultural values that we have at Bloomberg are around collaboration, innovation, do the right thing, and know your customer, as well as a massive emphasis on diversity and inclusion, as well as sustainability. Today, we'll have a panel event where we're going to talk a little bit more about how some of these things show up at Bloomberg, but also some of the roles and projects and things that you can get involved in with the company. So please ask questions. This is as much for us to have a conversation as it is to really answer questions that you have, and just to, you know, give you a kind of background on women in STEM and how important that is to our business. We do a lot of work with women in STEM through university, through other means to engage with that population, because we really see the value in STEM degrees and the technical nature of those degrees and the kind of logical thinking that goes into those kinds of degrees. So we're always looking for amazing women at Bloomberg, and STEM subjects are somewhere where we see a lot of success from people as well. So before we get into the more kind of role-based and Bloomberg-based questions, Madiha, I do have one quick question around what is your favorite thing about Bloomberg, just to get us started with some of the nice stuff.
That is, and I know I'm biased because I work here, but that is there's a lot of things. I think I'm going to cheat and say two, Alyssa, if that's okay. One, I would say, from a role point of view, the fact that there's so many new opportunities all the time, there's so many ways in which to get involved with new things. You constantly feel like you're challenged and you feel like you have the opportunity to develop your skills. From a non-role point of view, I would say the work we do with philanthropies is amazing. It's the most fun thing that we have the chance to do amazing events throughout the year to support different charities. So that's definitely something that also keeps me motivated.
Absolutely. And just to give a little bit more kind of clarity on that philanthropy piece. So Bloomberg is an organization where we're privately held, which means that we don't have shareholders in which to disperse our profit to. So what Mike Bloomberg, who is our founder, has done is created a foundation called Bloomberg Philanthropies. And almost all of our company profit is given to Bloomberg Philanthropies and then dispersed around communities in which we live and work with the most need. So that's across a myriad of different areas, predominantly health, the arts, education. And as Bloomberg employees, the profit that we help build, it enables us to be able to give back in a monetary way, but also as employees, we get to get involved in volunteer events and help out in our communities. So I don't know, Madiha, do you have an opportunity of a recent Bob event that you've best of Bloomberg event that you've done that was quite engaging?
I have to say by far one of my favorite, it was very cold, but one of my favorite ones was tree planting. We did that up in, I think, North London. That was really fun. One I haven't done recently, but is coming up because it's that time of year, is there's a really cool event where you get to go to Hamleys, the toy store, and pick out gifts before it's opened up for the day, and pick out gifts for needy children, and basically go and then wrap them and make hampers and so on. So probably two of my favorite, I would say.
I think that Hamleys one is the most popular event at the whole of Bloomberg. And for me, I've been doing a lot of volunteering even virtually. So I volunteer, I'm a recruiter, so a lot of my skills are around CV, and interview skills come in very handy. And we have a lot of partners in schools with A-level students, with GCSE students. And so I provide, mentorship and CV skills sessions and things there. But then I also work with primary school kids, and I do this writing program. So we used to do reading with them, but with the pandemic, we're not able to go into the school just yet. So we write them letters, which is really cool and a really rewarding thing to be able to do. And it provides that mentorship for those students. And for every hour of volunteer work you do, Bloomberg will put it into a pool called Dollars for Your Hours. If you do 25 hours in a year, you'll get $2,500 to give to a charity of your choice. And if you do 50, then you get $5,000 to send to a charity of your choice. And this year, I'm on 50, so I'm going to get to donate 5,000. And I was tallying it up, and since I started at Bloomberg, I've been able to donate $12,500, which is pretty staggering. Wow. And not something I would have been able to do without the help of Bloomberg. And I love my job and I love the people I get to engage with, but then to be able to give back at the end of that, I think is pretty cool. And I'm sure you'd agree, Madiha, with that.
That's very impressive. I wish I could say I've met your amount. I haven't, but that's a goal for me now, Alyssa.
Yeah, absolutely. So Madiha, can you talk us through your career so far and some of the key things that you've kind of picked up and learned that have helped you be successful? Maybe that's challenges, and maybe that's things that went really well throughout your career so far.
Yeah, definitely. So I studied chemistry as my undergrad. So I come from a STEM background, and I'm now in finance. So when I first was looking at what opportunities are out there, I was really looking to see what can I apply my skills to, that the skills that I built studying chemistry, what could I apply them to in the real world? And one thing that really struck me as something that I enjoy doing is working with data. And so that led me into my first role, which was working in data research for a company that focuses on private equity data specifically. And that was a really good opportunity to kind of build my knowledge and skills in an area that I hadn't studied, that I had no exposure to whatsoever beforehand. And it really was my skills that helped me get that role. And then that role helped me build the knowledge that I needed. That then opened up the opportunity to join Bloomberg, when Bloomberg were looking to expand out our private equity product. And so that's when I joined Bloomberg, like I said, almost 9 years ago now. And throughout this time that I've been here, I've had a number of different roles in different teams. After 2 years of joining, I joined part of the leadership team. And since then, I've been able to lead different teams, different products as well. I think through this whole experience, one thing that I've learned is definitely an asset is to be able to be comfortable with change. That's something that I've had to do constantly. Every few years, I feel like I've moved to a different team. And naturally, I never thought I was the kind of person that would adapt well to change, but I've learned how to do it. I've learned how to manage through that. And the world around us is full of change, as you guys would have all experienced. So I think navigating change, being able to handle it, being able to adapt to new environments, new areas is definitely an asset. I think the second thing also is the ability to really get to know the people that you're working with, and not only develop them and their skills, but also see how best you can use their skills to help achieve goals, or to help meet targets, or to help, execute on projects that we have going. I think it's very easy to focus on yourself and what you can do, but collaboration, as Alyssa mentioned earlier, is a big part of Bloomberg and our culture, and it's something we do quite a lot of. So really being able to leverage the individuals I have around me, the people in my team, the people I work with from other teams, has also been a really strong, I would say, asset to me developing my career, because it's helped me not only get them to develop their skills, but also help me get and expand my network and find new opportunities through that as well. So I definitely say those are my two key areas that have really helped me through my career.
Yeah, absolutely. And that piece around working with people, and it's that skills exchange. And I think that's one of the things I really love about Bloomberg is through the work I've done, I've had the opportunity to meet with so many people from all of HR, all across the business. Madiha and I work closely together because she's one of the hiring managers for roles I look for. And there's so many things that I get to learn by working with businesses, by working with other support departments as well. And there's things that I'm sure people get to learn from me, which is really cool. And Bloomberg really fosters that, and it helps harbor that kind of collaboration and some more formal forms of collaboration and the less formal side of it, which is great. I think that takes us nicely to a question around kind of mentors, and if we do want to formalize some of those collaboration and look at ways in which we can grow, personally and professionally. Often people want to seek out a mentor or a sponsor. What are some of the things that you would say we should look for in a mentor, and how have you seen that play out in global data?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Alyssa, just one thing you mentioned there, which is sponsor, which we don't often talk about. We often talk about mentors, but we don't focus on the sponsorship piece, which is really crucial. So it's something that I never really recognized or understood the difference between until just recently, up until last year when I first got my own sponsor. But, the difference between the two, first off, is a mentor is someone that you can help, kind of support, exchange ideas, use as a sounding board to help develop yourself. But a sponsor is someone that really brings you to the table, brings you to opportunities, is backing you up as a sponsor, even when you're not in the room. And that's a really, I think, crucial differential between developing skills versus getting action from that relationship. In terms of mentoring, though, to your question, I think a lot of people start to do mentoring because, or want to be mentored because they see it as an opportunity to learn and to develop themselves. And so when looking for a mentor, I think the big thing to look out for is, who do you look up to? Who do you see as a role model? Who has maybe a role that you'd want to be doing in the future, or is part of a department that you want to know more of? And really looking to use that as your first step of understanding who you could approach as part of this. In Global Data, we have been running a number of different mentoring programs in the past and still do. I've been involved as a mentor for individuals that are interested in moving into a leadership career. The person that I was mentoring now is part of the leadership group, so that was really great to see as a mentor, that development. But I think the crucial thing is seek out people that you see as role models that are doing something that you'd want to be doing, and then really leverage that opportunity to learn from them, to have a very clear idea of what it is that you want to work on and what skills you want to develop. And the benefits of that is you're working with someone not directly in your management chain. You're working with someone that has a different perspective that they can bring to it as well. So those are definitely some of the things we look out for. As someone that's also been a mentee, those are some of the things that I was looking for as well when I chose a mentor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. And I think that that's very similar for me. And something that I've learned through my career as well is around goal setting, and the fact that if I don't set rigid goals for myself, that I can't then seek out the right people to help me out. So before you even think about asking someone to mentor you, you really need to be clear in your mind, what is the direction I want to take? And for me, when I set goals, I have multiple goals that would have different mentors, but the first step is me going, okay, what do I want to learn? So for me, I'm very data driven in my role. Even though it's recruitment, I deal a lot with data, and particularly working with a business who data is everything. I have to make sure that I'm up to that standard. And so there's learning that I want to do around that. And when I go on holidays, that's when I always seem to set my goals, because it gives me some time to really reset. And so I kind of set one of the goals that I'd like to learn basic Python skills, because I think that could be really interesting, but also help me relate to the candidates that I'm bringing into roles and things like that. And that mentor is going to be very different from a mentor that is more around the work I do in diversity and inclusion, and some of the team that we have within HR that work specialized in diversity and inclusion. That person's not going to be the mentor that teaches me Python as well. And it's okay to have multiple mentors that are very singularly focused, but just be very clear at the start of that relationship, this is what I'm wanting to get out of it, but also be open to the fact that this is my expectation of if we go through a formal mentorship, or if we have this agreement around mentorship, I'd expect to meet you once a month, every fortnight, whatever that might look like, but be prepared that they might say, actually, at this point in time, I don't have space for that. And then see who else you can speak to. So be really clear with mentorship, but also be okay with maybe that person isn't right at that point in time. And it's better to know that they can't support you through your goals and help suggest someone else than to not be able to follow through. And the sponsorship thing is so crucial. And, I think that we'll talk a little bit about imposter syndrome and things like that later. But I also think that having a sponsor that you trust and will have your back even when you're not in the room helps with that piece immensely, because your voice is going to be heard, even if it's not your voice delivering your message.
100%. Just on that point, Alyssa, as well, sorry to cut in, but with mentoring, what we found, and you made a really excellent point there, what we found even with mentoring programs is, even when you don't have the hassle of having to find your own mentor, you're partnered with someone and you're set up to be a mentor mentee, the ways that it works well is only when people continue that organic development of that relationship and have clear goals and clear focus areas they want to work on. I've seen relationships where people meet 3 times because they were asked to, and then they never meet again because there just wasn't that structure in place. So I think you made a really, really excellent point there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, at Bloomberg, we have a number of different ways in which we can facilitate that meeting. So obviously, Madiha has spoken about how that works in global data, but we also have employee-led communities. So D&I is something that's extremely important to both Madiha and myself. And one of the ways in which we can engage with creating a diverse and inclusive workforce is through these employee-led communities that we have, which cover all different dimensions of diversity. And you can be a member of those, whether you're part of that community or an ally of that community. So that's things like the women's community, the LGBT and ally community, the Black professionals community, for example. But we have 8 in total. And through those communities, there's also opportunities for mentorship and once again, that sponsorship as well. And that would give you a different kind of mentorship to that role-based mentorship. But speaking of kind of the communities and how the communities show up at Bloomberg, Madiha, can you talk to us a little bit about your experience with the communities, maybe some of the events that you've been to and how you felt that they have really enhanced your experience at Bloomberg?
Yeah, definitely. So I am one of the co-leads for the Bloomberg Abilities community right now. I took on that role this year. That community is really focused on providing a platform and a space for individuals that identify as having disabilities, but also their allies as well. And I think that applies to any community. It's not just for individuals that may identify a certain way, it's really for allies. And we've seen in the past few years as well how important that allyship is when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So as part of the abilities community, one of the focus areas that I've had is on mental health and well-being, and it's something that the pandemic obviously sped up some of the progress in terms of having those conversations, which was great. We're having conversations about mental health more now than we were, 2-3 years ago even. So one of my focus areas has been mental health. It's been kind of not only at the education and awareness piece of people understanding what mental health is and understanding that, it's a spectrum, just as physical health is on a spectrum or a continuum even, that we all have it, that we may go through times where our mental health isn't great, go through times where it is great. And that education awareness piece has been really important for us as a community to share with our community members, but across the board as well. We've been doing a number of different events to educate, but also provide a platform for people to come together and share. Just this morning, we had a mental health roundtable, which is where people can come together and really share their experiences, how they may be feeling about a certain theme, and have the support of others from the organization to listen in and share their thoughts as well. So I would say it's definitely one that I've been really excited to do. I think the second thing that's great with the communities is how we always find opportunities to find that intersection between different communities. So what are the things that bring individuals together across different cross-sections of society, across different cross-sections of communities? The session we did today, for instance, was with the military veterans community, given this month is Veterans Month. And we were really able to hear their experience of going from military life to civilian life as an example, and some of the stress that comes from that. So it's definitely, I would say, some of my highlights for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of those, cross-community events, and I feel like we've seen a massive pickup in those through the COVID pandemic. And I think that, that's one of the positive things is like people because of the virtual nature of things, we're able to connect more people, have more people. We weren't restricted by the size of a room like we maybe were previously. So we could really all come together. But also, I think there's been this amazing, uptick in community engagement, just more in the more general Bloomberg community through the pandemic, because people naturally come together when things are tough, and the communities are an amazing way to build your personal brand, to grow professionally, to get insight, and also to make friends. So many of my colleagues who are friends I've met through community events and going to cool things and getting to do amazing things, but also at the same time meeting people who end up becoming your friends, which is always nice, and a great way to kind of build that collaboration as well, because you meet people from all different departments across the company. When we think a little bit about STEM backgrounds and the roles available, I'll speak to it from a recruiter's perspective, that STEM backgrounds are great for us and great generally, because your skill set is so broad and you have so many skills that we're looking for across a number of different industries, whether that's technical skills, whether that's dealing for our roles with like large sets of data, whether you're using an engineering degree but you're wanting to go into something more project management focused. There's so much application of the skills you learn in university in roles. But Madiha, obviously at Bloomberg, we do operate in financial markets. So whilst we want to see a lot of those data skills and technical skills that come through a STEM degree, we also want to see an interest in financial markets. We could teach a lot, but we want to see the interest. What would be your advice to someone from a STEM degree background who's looking to build a career in financial markets? And maybe that's at Bloomberg, maybe that's elsewhere, but how would you kind of suggest that they start to go about that?
Yeah, no, really good question, because I think some people, especially if you're entering a new space, first of all, credit to you for being challenging yourself and putting yourself in an environment maybe that you aren't as familiar with, because that takes a lot of effort as well. I think one thing to bear in mind is we talk about finance quite a bit, but finance is so broad. It covers so many different areas. It covers everything from crypto to eco to fundamentals to acquisitions. And there's so much that's involved within that you're never, I don't think anyone will ever be an expert in all things finance related. We'll all have, some level of expertise. But I think one of the first things to do is to really understand within finance, what is it that you're passionate about? Are there any areas particularly that you've heard of, that you've seen in the news, not necessarily financial news, but just news stories that may come up about finance related topics? I think it's really figuring out what specifically you're passionate about, because if you're making this shift, there's going to be a driver of, I'm making the shift because I read this, or I came across this, or I had experience with this. If you are generally just interested in finance and don't have a particular asset class that you're interested in, you just know that it's something you're really keen on pursuing, I would still say a really big thing you could start to do is just keeping up with financial news, reading what's going on. You can build so much knowledge just reading news stories about what's happening, what companies are doing, how they're behaving, how on a macro level different countries are setting policies as well, looking at different trends in different industries. Financial news, Bloomberg, the website, to do a bit of a plug there, is a great way just to be able to read a bit more about what's going on, so that when you do go for interviews, no one's going to ask you to go into detail about company valuations, for instance, but they will want to know, what is it about finance? What have you read? What are some of the interesting trends you're keeping up with? And that's one thing I would definitely recommend. Please make sure you're keeping up with that. And then the last bit of advice I would say on this part is, as Alyssa said, when you come in with certain skills from an engineering, a maths, science background, you may have already the data analysis. You may already have some of the mathematical skills that we can use to do things like valuations. I think it's really important to just reflect on what you do have, what skills you have, what you would be bringing to the table that can be ported over from a STEM background into finance. It's good to know what value you're bringing, because there is always value that you're bringing. It's good to be able to recognize that, so you can speak to that as well, other than your interest in finance. Hope that answers the question.
I think that's a really good answer. And actually, that makes me reflect. I was on an event yesterday called Your Uniqueness is Your Power. And that really speaks to the thinking about what skills you have and what unique values you can bring that someone else might not have. And I think that that's exactly what you need to hone in on in an interview. But something that came out of that event was also the fact that sometimes you'll be asked an interview question and it might be around financial markets and you might not know the answer. And it's actually okay to sit in, I'm not quite sure of that, but this is how I'd go about finding out. Because an interviewer would much rather hear that than a jab at an answer when you're not really sure that probably ends up being wrong. It's okay to say, like, I'm not sure of that just yet, but it's something I'm willing to learn. This is how I'd go about learning it. But what I do know is X, Y, and Z, and kind of rounding out an answer that way, rather than, just kind of coming up with something that potentially hits completely wrong. But Madiha, you obviously interview a lot of people in your role. I know we get you involved in a lot of interviews. So what would some of your top tips be for someone who's interviewing for a role, at Bloomberg or more generally?
I would say, one, understand the company, and going to events like this is great because it gives you an insight into the company and the culture and how you would fit within that and what you can bring to the table. Secondly is really get a good understanding of the role. I know sometimes it's hard to read between the lines of a job description, if you don't know the details of what they're asking for. Really basic example, data analysis means so many different things depending on which role you're applying for, right? So really get a good understanding of the role. I know that when we do recruitment events, I know we always have the opportunity to, when we have our assessment days, do shadowing of an individual that works in data, and that gives you a bit more of an understanding of what the role actually is. But we've also got a great number of resources online. I know the recruitment team does a great job of keeping resources online up to date in terms of what different roles are and what they mean. And so just doing your research on what the role is, what the company is, how you would fit into that. But then going back to that point of really think about what skills you bring to the table. Think about what transferable skills you have that would be really applicable to the role that you're going for. And I think the fourth thing would be always have something to ask. That you must have a million questions. I know everyone does, but always have something to ask at the end. I think it always shows that you've done your research, that you've really thought through what are some of the opportunities available, but you're also interested in learning more. And I think, cases where we have people asking really thoughtful questions that I've not been asked before, even after so long that I have been doing interviews, it really makes you realize that these are individuals that are really keen to understand what they can get from this opportunity, what they can give to this opportunity as well. So short answer is do your research across everything, but just be prepared to talk through specifics and examples that back up those specifics as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else I'd say is that you want to just, I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome now, so that's where I'm flipping to. And you want to be confident in the fact that you deserve to be where you are. If you're in an interview process, there's a reason for that. So I think sometimes people think confidence means like you are so sure of yourself and it's almost like this air of, I suppose, cockiness. That's not what I mean by confidence. What I mean is like, don't doubt that you're where you're meant to be in an interview process. And, if we look at an interview process at Bloomberg, you enter a CV, you go through a Q&A, which is quite in depth. If you're successful from there, you go through a pre-recorded video interview, which then after that you would meet someone. If you've got through all those steps and you're in an interview situation, you're supposed to be there. So trust in yourself that you're where you're meant to be. And if it doesn't work out, then that's okay, and it's a learning experience. But I see so many people fall down on the fact that they're unsure of themselves and they feel like maybe they don't deserve to be there. And particularly for women in STEM, I do a lot of work with women in STEM, and sometimes like, yeah, but like I don't think I'm the background that you need. And I'm like, yeah, but I wouldn't have put you through the process and you wouldn't have got this far if that was the case. So trust that you're here for a reason and try and forget that, even though I know that's hard, because I've been in many situations where I have felt like I don't belong in the room. But what I'm learning as I grow and become more mature is that I'm where I'm supposed to be for a reason. And sometimes it doesn't go the way I planned, but there's a learning from that. And it's about then reflecting on, if it didn't go how I planned, how do I reflect on that and make sure that I'm improving for the future. So Madiha, I think that, imposter syndrome, I think, is something that shows up for a lot of us during our career. Is there any point in time where maybe you felt that sense of imposter syndrome, and any tips you have to be able to kind of battle that or make sure it doesn't creep into the point where it's not affecting you, or sorry, it is affecting how you move forward, I should say?
Yeah, I have felt it many times. I'm going to put that out there. Not going to lie. I have felt it many times. I think every time I've changed my role, every time that I have taken on maybe something different to what I'm used to, I have had that moment, not necessarily full on every time, but there have been moments of doubt that creep in, moments of, am I really the right person for this? Can I actually do this? One thing that I heard that I think is really useful to remember is when it comes to imposter syndrome. Someone that has it and someone that doesn't, there's pretty much no difference in their ability. So if I'm experiencing it and my colleague isn't, it's not because my colleague may be better than me. It's just that confidence piece that they have that I don't have, right? So I think a couple of things I do to help with this is, one, reflect on what is it that's actually making me feel that way. Is it because I've had an experience in the past that didn't go so well? Is it because I'm comparing myself to others? Is it because I'm lacking confidence? I think just reflecting on that and kind of giving yourself the boost of, this is why I'm feeling this way, and actually that may be driven by my own doubts, not by someone else telling me, can sometimes help in boosting your confidence. And secondly, and I think this is something you can do all the time, is celebrate your wins, no matter how small, how big they are. Acknowledge them, celebrate them, take time to think through and acknowledge the fact that you've done something well, and give yourself that reflection time, not only on, how can I continue to be better, but also what have I done that's great? And sometimes that may be writing it down. It may just be having a memory in mind, but it's something that you can do to really help support your confidence building, because that's all this comes down to, is having that confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. The reflection piece is so important. Again, I do that when I go on breaks. I set my goals and I reflect. It's a nice time to do it. But I think we might have some audience questions, so I'm going to pass back to Lizzie and hear from you.
Amazing, thank you. And I feel like we've been on a journey. What a lovely discussion it's been between both of you, and listening to all of your different experiences and things like that. And when you said about holiday, it just made me think of the background. I'm not on holiday, it's just in our office. But yeah, thank you so much. I thought I'd just hop on quickly because you were having such a great chat. There's a few specific questions which I thought would be good to ask. So we've had a few questions around sort of the key traits and skills that you look for in students when they're applying. And I guess it's because you're selling it so well. So students are thinking, how do I actually apply? So if you've got any hints and tips about that, that'd be grand.
Yeah, so I think that it's slightly different for each of our departments, but generally speaking, the main things that you want to hit on when you're applying for a role is there's a skills piece, but a lot of the things at Bloomberg are teachable. So a lot of the time what we want to see is an interest and a keenness to learn and a drivenness to kind of be involved in this fast-paced environment. So if you're looking at roles within global data, we think about a kind of triangle of skills and interest, and that is skills with data, but that could be things from advanced Excel skills, SQL, R, VBA. It doesn't have to be Python. I think everyone thinks, oh, you must need Python, but if you are interested in learning Python, we can help teach you that. And not everything in global data at this point is automated to the point of using Python. So there are other skills that we need. We want to see some people with technical skills. So maybe you are someone who codes, and that's also valuable. But then you have more of an interest in finance, or maybe you've come with a more finance background, or you're doing like a finance master's, and then you have more of an interest in building the technical side. So it's that triangle of finance, data, and tech. And then for our other roles, we look for that finance interest. We look for customer service skills, because knowing our customers is so important to us. So we really want to make sure that we keep customer service front of mind. And that's true in global data as well. We always want to think about client impact. And then for some of our other roles, we also have European language requirements. So if you speak a second, third European language, that's always a great skill and trait to have. But really, it's about understanding of the role, understanding of the company, and just showing up and being your authentic self in an interview process as well.
Amazing. Great advice there for anyone listening. And probably one more question, one sneaky question. I loved all of the different activities that you were talking about, the communities, the Hamleys event where you pack the gift boxes. And I think that's really, really great to hear, because it's stuff that you just don't really get to hear about unless you're on these kind of events. One of the students has asked, how do you decide which one? There's so many. How do you decide?
Madiha, do you want to talk through Bob, the function?
Yeah, definitely. So we have an in-house function called Bob, Best of Bloomberg, and you can basically go on there and see a full calendar of events that you can sign up to. As long as you've got sign off from your manager, and you don't have like conflicting appointments at a certain time, no one will ever stop you from signing up to these. It's a great way to see what's coming up as well for the next few months. It's a great way to see which charities maybe you want to support and do events with. The outdoorsy ones are very, very popular, especially in the summer months, as you can imagine. We work with a lot of the royal parks to do tree planting, but cleanups as well, and kind of prepping for different seasons. So yeah, it's you sometimes don't have to choose. You can do whatever you want to do. But it's a great opportunity, and I think it's definitely something that people see and are motivated by as well. Just the chance to help others alongside doing the work that we do as well.
Yeah. And the other benefit of the Best of Bloomberg page is because we support so many partners throughout London, so the museums, the parks, we get a lot of access. So we all, as a Bloomberg employee, get this orange badge, and that gives you access to, all of the royal palaces. You get free access, the London Zoo, all of the museums, like the paid exhibitions in the museums, you can get free access to. So there's a lot of perks as well. You get to help out, but you can maybe also go to the theatre, go to the zoo, do something cool in your personal time as well.
I love that. That's like your access all areas, your VIP pass.
Literally.
Exactly. And interns get that as well. So it's even if you join us for a 10-week internship, you'll get an orange badge and get the access.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We've probably run out of time now. So if you have got any questions that weren't asked, please head to the booth where you can have them answered. And just a massive thank you. It's been brilliant listening to all the different things that we're doing and very inspirational. So thank you again. And we'll be back on the main stage at 1:55. So see you all then. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Lizzie.
much. Bye.
Bye.